Hello everyone, I'm Rick Grimes, also known as the _Rick_Grime5 on Twitch. I am the #1 ranked Star-Lord player in the world, and I am going to be ranking every playable hero in the Marvel Rivals Alpha playtest. This list will start from the worst hero to play as to the very best hero in the game. Remember, a hero listed in D could certainly be the one for you, depending on your playstyle, and any good player can make a bad hero look good. However, this is a very accurate list of the available heroes and their rankings in the current meta. This list is subject to change when the game officially launches, and I will create an updated list when it does release. I also want to preface for those who are unfamiliar. The phrase ult is a commonly used word by players to shorten the word ultimate, which is a reference to a character's ultimate attack. Alright, let's do this. Coming in at number 19 is Black Panther, DPS, Duelist, D tier. Black Panther is unfortunately the worst hero in the game. For such an awesome character, he is very underpowered and has little to no value. If you have a Panther on your team, you want to recommend him to switch to someone else. Quite literally anyone else. His ulti is visually cool as he summons Bast, but overall he is a weak character. There is nothing really special to him. He is a DPS character that requires you to get up close and personal, but he will always get melted by competent players. Overall, Panther's abilities are not notable or strong enough to have someone choose him in the squad. He has a team-up ability with magic, but it is of no substance whatsoever. Panther has a passive ability that buffs his damage the lower his health gets. This passive ability sounds great on paper, but is terrible in reality, because the last thing you want to do when you're on low health is getting close to attack. Hopefully he gets buffed in the future, otherwise he will always remain in D tier. Coming in at number 18 is Namor, DPS, Duelist, C tier. Namor is a unique character in Marvel Rivals who has some decent abilities. His left click is that he throws his trident at enemies, which is cool, but it's quite slow and makes it more of a downside. He does have auto turrets that do damage to enemies, and Namor can specifically target people with these turrets, but they are quite weak and don't do significant damage. He has a shield ability that allows him to launch into the air and become temporarily invulnerable to attacks. This sounds good in theory, but realistically he just becomes one of those air fresheners for your car. He looks nice, but he isn't doing much else. Also, this ability leaves him hanging in the air like a Christmas ornament and is ready to get melted as soon as he leaves this effect. His ult is pretty good as he calls in Giganto, which can do some good damage but requires all enemies to be in its area of attack. Namor can team up with Luna for unique attacks that make playing him worthwhile, but he is the weakest character in C tier. Coming in at number 17 is Spider-Man, DPS, Duelist, C tier. Spider-Man is very fun to play as, but is not a competitive hero to play as. Yes, if you have a good player behind him, he can do wonders for the team. His abilities include web swinging to avoid dogfights, and he can web his enemies up to stun lock them, which is very good. Where Spider-Man falters is his role as a DPS. He has to get in close, which works well with his abilities, but he will more often than not get wiped out very quickly. Most players use Spider-Man as a solo hero to get in close, deal damage, and get out, which is fine at a certain level. This plan of attack does not work at high competitive ranks, and if you somehow manage to do it, buy yourself a lottery ticket, because that ain't skill, it's luck. Spider-Man's ult is pretty good, as it webs up all those within his range, but most characters have better ults than this. He can double jump too, but so can Super Mario, so that being an ability is kind of mid, honestly. His abilities overall are good, but nothing special, keeping him in C tier for the foreseeable future. Coming in at number 16 is Storm, DPS, Duelist, C tier. Storm is a very decent hero, not that good, but certainly not bad. She is great at hitting enemies from afar, especially in the air. Her ult creates a tornado that reels all enemies into it and keeps them stationary. This can be matched up perfectly with Namor's ult to do massive damage to a large group of enemies. This sounds like a powerful combo, but requiring two heroes to combine their ults just for this is too much, considering that both heroes aren't the greatest to play as. Storm's strongest aspect is her supporting role to buff other teammates with damage buffs. This is not good enough to consider her any higher in the tier list though, so she stays in C. Coming in at number 15 is Iron Man, DPS, Duelist, C tier. Iron Man is a hero who I could see being in B tier, as he is great at attaining air superiority and doing good damage from above. He can be likened to characters like Pharah from Overwatch, as he can stay in the air and blast players down below. An unchecked Iron Man is actually quite dangerous, but he can be quickly dispatched by a good DPS player. His abilities are actually quite good. His ulti is a pulse cannon blast that is an instant kill on direct impact. It can even kill a large group of enemies at once. His ability to fly gives him a chance to avoid ground battles and deliver damage from above. He can activate armor that buffs his other weapons, and can fire a missile barrage that can do good damage. Where Iron Man falls down the list for me is his abilities. Although they are good, they are not game-changing. He can be a menace in the right hands, but for now he is just another hero. I can absolutely see him possibly becoming one of the best heroes in the game if he is slightly buffed. For now, C tier, but with a definite potential for a B tier placement. Who knows, maybe even higher someday, but there are just simply better heroes to support your team. Coming in at number 14 is Mantis, healer, strategist, C tier. Mantis is a healer and not a bad one at all, but she is the worst option out of all the healers in the game. Let's start off with her abilities. She has a great ability called Spore Slumber that allows her to sedate an enemy, putting them into a momentary slumber. This can be extremely useful and why I have her at the top of C tier. It gives players just enough time to finish them while they are essentially stun locked for the time being. Her healing is good, but nothing here is any better than the other healers in the game. Her ult is okay, but every other healer has a better ult. She does what a healer should do, but she doesn't excel in any element like the other healers do. I only have her above Iron Man in this list because I will always prefer having a healer that can support the team rather than an Iron Man that sort of just does his own thing. She can also buff teammates and herself, which is useful in many situations. Coming in at number 13 is Scarlet Witch, DPS, Duelist, B tier. Scarlet barely makes the B tier because of her ult. Let's be honest, it is very powerful. Virtually an instant kill to every enemy in its range. This can be paired with Strange's Portal for a surprising deadly combo. What also props her up into B tier is her team-up ability with Magneto, which gives him a deadly melee weapon, her Dark Seal, which can stun lock enemies within it, and her Reality Erasure, that allows her to flee battles quickly. Her fleeing ability is very useful to evade further damage and elude enemies. Her regular attacks are very basic though, and are not a highlight whatsoever. If you have a Magneto on your team, a Scarlet Witch can be a welcome addition. If not, maybe choose another DPS. At number 12, DPS, Duelist, B tier. Magik is another DPS like Panther and Spider-Man that needs to get close to deal out damage. But what makes Magik special is how she can use her sword to keep enemies just far enough from her to not return enough damage to kill her while she does big damage up close. Her Dark Child ult is strong for sure, but contrary to most who believe it is unstoppable, it is very stoppable. She is not invincible during her ult, and I have personally ended her quickly on several occasions even in this form. All this form ensures is optimal damage output, but she can still get melted if a good DPS focuses on her. Her slashes are quite good, but her best utility is her teleport, which allows for her to evade and enhance her attacks for flurries of damage. She is a strong pick to have on a team, but not essential at all. At number 11 is the Hulk, Tank, Vanguard, B tier. The Hulk is a tank who uses close proximity strikes to deal out damage. He starts off in his human form as Bruce Banner, who has a gun which is extremely weak. He has 3 ults, which include his transformation from Bruce into the Hulk, which you get immediately, and then a second ult turning you into Monster Hulk. His third and final ult allows Monster Hulk to slam an enemy repeatedly in an animation which makes him invincible until the animation ends. In his regular Hulk form, he has some good attacks. His punches are strong, he has an okay shield, and he can leap to far distances. This can create unique angles to attack from and even get behind enemy lines. His other abilities are decent, but nothing to highlight. His Monster Hulk form can be used to escape death and create another life bar, which is a great play if pulled off right. Where Hulk fails is his need to get up close, which leaves him vulnerable to most attacks, and his Bruce Banner form is way too weak. His Monster Hulk form has a great deal of health though, which is great for players who want to use him on the team. Hulk places nicely in B tier, but doesn't have much room to go higher unless they buff his Bruce form. Here we go. The top 10. In 10th place is Luna Snow, healer, strategist, B tier. Luna is a great healer. She can create space between her and the opponents while healing her team swiftly. She has a team-up ability with Namor that gives him enhanced attacks, but her strengths are her abilities and her ult. Her passive is she moves much quicker than other heroes and restores health when using her other abilities. She can attach Idle Aura to allies that allow them to restore health, while Luna heals other allies and fire shards at enemies or allies that can do decent healing or damage depending on who she hits. Where Luna shines is her ult, which is very strong. Activating her ult allows her and her team to essentially become invincible, as she gives either healing or damage buffs to all teammates in her vicinity. Now, while she and her team aren't actually invincible when this ult occurs, the damage received while the ult is active is virtually useless, as her and her teammates heal very quickly. Her ult can be employed to heal her entire team when needed, and then return fire, buffing her teammates' attacks. She is 100% capable of an A tier placement, but I think what keeps her in B is the fact there are 2 other healers in the game that are better to have on the team. At number 9 is Magneto, Tank, Vanguard, A tier. The Master of Magnetism just closes in to the A tier category for a few reasons. These are his abilities and the fact that Magneto is good everywhere, up close and at range. His abilities are very good to have, and I'd want a Magneto on the team than to not have him. Here is why. Magneto has a nice synergy with Scarlet Witch that allows him to enchant his great sword for maximum damage. This allows Magneto to have buffed melee attacks, which makes his CQC better than even Hulk. Magneto does decent range damage, but his other abilities are what makes him a great asset. Every shot Magneto receives contributes to a metal weapon that forms over time, which Magneto can then throw at enemies for great damage, and even knocks back enemies if it has accrued enough metal. He also has a shield that is super beneficial to protecting him and his team. Magneto also has a strong ult that allows him to convert all projectiles aimed towards him into a large metal meteorite, which he then throws at enemies for huge damage. Magneto is an A tier tank. Some may believe he is B tier or even lower, but he has so much utility. At number 8 is Doctor Strange. Tank. Vanguard. A tier. The master of the mystic arts is deservedly an A tier tank. He has so much versatility and is always great to have on the team. His abilities are one of a kind and can even have a team-up ability with Hulk and Iron Man for new ways to play. Let's start with Doctor Strange's shield, which is amazing. He creates a full, round shield that can block all projectiles, gunfire, and other attacks. It has a large area of effect and can even be used in clever ways such as blocking Hela's ult attacks and other hero abilities. The shield's health is great and is so useful in every situation. Strange can also fly with the Cloak of Levitation, which can have him retreat or just utilize attacks from the air. He can open portals, which allows him and his team to attack from different angles or even get behind enemy lines. Oh, and let's talk about his fantastic ult. Strange's ult stun locks all enemies within his range and separates their souls from their bodies, which allows for Strange and his team to deal damage without worrying about them fighting back. It has a large area of effect and can even be used in clever ways such as blocking Hela's ult attacks and other hero abilities. The shield's health is great and is so useful in every situation. Strange's only drawbacks that keep him from being any higher in the tier list is his passive ability, which is dark magic that accumulates over time when he hits enemies. If this dark magic is not released, he enters a state of anti-heal, so any healing he receives will be nullified. Although this can simply be avoided, having a negative trait of any kind is not what you want in a hero. If this was removed or even altered to a degree, Strange could be an S-tier hero. At number 7 is Penny Parker. Tank. Vanguard. A tier. Penny Parker is arguably the second best tank because of her utilities. Although Strange and even Magneto have great abilities that can turn the tide of battle, where Penny thrives is her abilities having objective control by employing her gadgets to outpoint the opponents. Every ability Penny has creates great detriment for her opponents. She can create arachno mines that can be concealed within her cyber webs. Her cyber web snares are amazing. They completely immobilize enemies, allowing for them to be at the mercy of Penny and her team. Penny's cyber bond power can create a web strand that allows her to take advantage of her environment for more control. Her bionic spider nest generates spider drones and cyber webs that are a pain for enemies to deal with. Finally, her ult is super cool, allowing her to run around quickly, shooting out mines, drones, and webs simultaneously, covering every area she goes to. This also has a knockback effect when she stampedes her way towards an enemy. Having a Penny on your team is greatly appreciated to ensure enemy pushes are either completely stopped or at least impeded enough for your team to regroup and push back on the offensive. We are now entering the top 6, with squads making up 6 people. These are the 6 heroes that you want in your team. Number 6 is the god of mischief himself, Loki. Healer. Strategist. A tier. Loki is the second best healer in the game. His precise shots do great damage for a healer, and his role as a healer is very good. All of Loki's abilities are super useful for Loki and his team. Firstly, Loki can create doppelgangers that act as illusions for the enemies. Each illusion looks exactly like Loki and act as automated turrets that can heal friendlies or do damage to enemy combatants. These illusions can have multiple created at a time and can be placed at different heights. This means players can be healed, even when their Loki isn't around, which is valuable. Loki can also switch places with his illusions to quickly escape tricky situations. He can also evade enemies with deception, which makes him invisible for a limited time. Loki also has melee opportunities with his backstab ability that does powerful damage when attacking enemies from behind. Next to his useful illusions, he can construct rune stones that converts damage into healing energy for his team. His ult allows Loki to shapeshift into any other hero that he looks at, meaning he can transform into another hero on his team or a hero on the enemy team as long as he looks at them. Although this doesn't last very long, it is long enough for Loki to even use the hero's ult he changes into. Loki is overall a great addition to the game and is definitely a member you want on the team. Deserved A tier. Now, the top 5. These are the best of the best. At number 5 is the Punisher. DPS, Duelist, A tier. The Punisher is a powerful DPS hero who can do overwhelming damage to enemies. His abilities match his character, and playing him almost guarantees you defeating the enemy team. Starting things off at his insanely powerful ult. He essentially puts on an exosuit of guns that can shoot a ridiculous amount of firepower that does so much damage on enemies, killing them within a few hits and potentially wiping out a large portion of the enemy team. He additionally has a strong turret that virtually turns him into Bastion from Overwatch, changing the perspective to first person and allowing Punisher to deal large amounts of damage. His assault rifle is very good, but even more powerful is his shotgun, which in close proximity can instant kill or two-shot enemies, which is godly. His team-up ability with Rocket is another powerful tool, making his and Rocket's guns have temporary unlimited ammo, which is bananas. He is almost deserving of an S, but what keeps him at the top of A is his other two abilities. He has a zip line that can act like a sky hook that propels him to higher ground or simply whatever direction he is looking at. Although this can be used effectively, it is quite stiff in execution and leaves him vulnerable to attacks. A better ability could be replaced here, or even a modification that would allow him to aim and shoot while zipping across. He also has a smoke that synergizes with his passive ability, which allows him to see the outline of enemies through obstructions for a short time. A great passive, but the smoke does not last nearly enough time for it to be used competitively. It's simply not good enough to award him an S-tier placement, but Punisher is such a powerful hero and having one on your team is almost essential. At number 4 is Rocket Raccoon, healer, strategist. S-tier. Rocket is the best healer in the game. He can heal and deal great damage simultaneously. Having a Rocket on your team is exactly what you want for optimal healing efficiency. Rocket's healing shots not only have a wide radius, but he can ricochet his healing blasts to heal teammates that are further away or at a different height to where Rocket is. His Gatling gun has just enough ammunition to finish an enemy that you're firing at. These are just his gun's attributes. Now we'll get onto his abilities. Rocket can place a revive station that allows for his team to respawn exactly where he places it, which is one of the most useful tools in the game. When heroes die, they will go back to a neutral spawn point, and they have to go all the way back to the battle, losing valuable time. This places Rocket's team right back into the fight to put pressure on the enemy team. It shoots out bonus buffs too, like armor packs for allies to use. He can dash quickly into or out of battle with his jetpack, which is invaluable as it can create space for Rocket and give him time to heal and jump back into the fight. His ult is an amplifier that can be placed pretty much anywhere, and all allies in its range will receive a damage buff. Placing it on a payload is a play I do often as Rocket that creates magnificent results. The fact he can team up with Punisher and Groot makes him essential in any team. Rocket is a certified S-tier and the best healer. Sorry if you main other healers, Rocket just does what they all do but better. And then there were 3, and at number 3, the best tank in the game, Groot. Tank, Vanguard, S-tier. Groot is the best tank, without a doubt. Groot is an absolute unit, a brute who can soak up damage but also dish it out. He can greatly control the battleground and keep his team protected from being flanked. Groot can create walls that are strong enough to withstand multiple magazines of ammo from enemies. These walls prevent flanking but can also be used to create ramps to get to higher ground. Not only are these walls great for absorbing gunfire, but can actually deal damage to enemies who are close to it that Groot is attacking. And if it's an ironwood wall, it will give Groot health if he is being attacked. This is only when Groot is near them, but still a great asset. Groot also has a spore bomb that splits into smaller explosive bombs that hurts opponents. Groot has a powerful ult too that pulls enemies to the center and traps them for a short time, allowing Groot and his team to capitalize. Groot is the best tank without question, and his walls are such a great utility. At number 2, it's my boy, Star-Lord, DPS, Duelist, S-tier. Star-Lord is, and will always be my boy on this game. I started off playing as him and absolutely crushed every lobby I was in when I used him. After quickly becoming the number 1 ranked Star-Lord player in the world, I knew he was something special. Star-Lord is a very fast-moving, quick-shooting, wheeling-dealing son of a gun. His blasters fire at a crazy fast rate and do powerful damage. He can fly using his rocket propulsion boots that can be used to flee and reset, fly to higher ground, or simply rush opponents. He can dodge using his stellar shift ability, which can auto-reload his weapons, meaning he can fire 3 magazines back-to-back without properly reloading. Yeah, holy shit. His blaster barrage is an incredible tool that can hit enemies within its range, doing a lot of damage. This is extremely useful at close range, and I always destroy opponents with it. His ult is absolutely fantastic, allowing Star-Lord to fly in the air and auto-target enemies, blasting them with an overwhelming amount of shots. Star-Lord is a perfect package of damage, movement, and versatility. I am proud to be the best Star-Lord player in the world. Justified S-tier. Finally, at number 1 is Hela. Hela is the best hero to play in Marvel Rivals. She is broken. If you hit your targets with Hela, you can win the game. She is so damn powerful, and that is just her main attack. Her abilities are just as good. Her passive allows for enemies she kills to emit a Nastron Crow that explodes after a few seconds, doing damage to enemies in its proximity. She can flee from battle with her Astral Flock, becoming a crow that flies away quickly. Her piercing Knight ability fires Knight Swords towards her opponents that explode shortly after impact. My favorite ability of hers is the Soul Drainer attack that sends a sphere that briefly stuns opponents. Her ult is OP, allowing her to send blasts from above that deal massive damage to enemies. Hela is the best hero in the game to play as. She is overpowered as hell. She's almost guaranteed to be nerfed, but it was fun while it lasted. And that's the tier list. I personally think I have made a very accurate list that reflects the current heroes and rivals. This list is subject to change with the launch of the game, but I want to thank the homie Maleficent Monster for the code to join the play test, and I thank you all for watching the video. Have fun, and I will see you next time.
Catch me